Yo, what's going on, guys? Hopefully you're all doing well and having yourselves a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Got my boy DFJ Hoops on here. We're going to talk a little bit about some Sixers basketball and just reflect. We're going to reflect on the season. We're going to talk about NBA free agency and how this should be approached. And this is a big offseason, man, but a lot to unpack here with the Philadelphia 76ers. My boy DFJ, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on, JJ? Happy to stop by. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I appreciate it. Now I have to get into this. I have to get into this because, like, you reached out to me because like you were like, we're gonna do this. Like, you're not gonna back out on me. Like, you're not like we're gonna do this. I've
Right.
kept my word. Have I always kept my word, DFJ?
You have. You definitely have.
Okay.
I'll give you that
There
for
we go.
sure.
Good stuff. There we go. There we go. That's all I wanted to hear because I needed some time to reflect. I really did. I needed to step away from the team for a little bit after the season was done, and I got blessed. I got blessed
Right.
because the baseball team was on a magic carpet ride, and they still are. I know that they lost last night as of this date or as of this recording. But yes, so I needed some time to just step away from everything, and now I'm sort of reflecting on what happened at the end of that relationship this year.
Right.
And I think that it's safe to say, and I want to get your thoughts on this. It was a wild season. It was
It
a very
was.
wild season. And I felt like that this year was 3 years bunched into one.
Right. I feel the same. I feel the same. I feel the same too. And with you saying that you had to, kind of step away from, the team a little bit. I mean, I give you that because uh 80 what? 87 games. I mean, if you count the playoff games as well. I mean, you called all
Yep.
these games, did a hell of a job on them, covered this team. Sometimes after the games, you would do a post-game reaction to the games and, giving your thoughts and, talking about the game. So, yeah, you absolutely did your thing, but saying that
Appreciate that.
this season, yeah, saying that this season was felt like 3-1. I also feel the same way because if you start from the top, from what happened from the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, get into the ending of the season, and then into the playoffs, it just felt like 3 seasons combined as one. I feel the same way for sure.
Yeah, and this team, the one thing that people are gonna obviously shake off is that Joel wasn't just the only guy that got hurt.
Hmm.
Every single night, it felt like somebody was out because of an illness. Kelly Oubre has the motor vehicle incident, whatever you want to call that. He misses time. Tyrese Maxey gets the flu. DeAnthony Melton with the back problems. Robert Covington with literally getting hurt in December, and we all thought that he was going to be okay, and he never comes back. Like,
Right. I mean, somebody was also dealing with, I'm not going to say his name, but Philly
yeah,
fans probably know his name. But, he was also dealing with some ankle issues, some knee problems.
yes, sir.
Some point in the season, he was in and out the lineups as well. Other guys were also dealing with injuries. I mean, Mo Bamba, I know people don't really care about him, but he was dealing with some issues. And yeah, Kelly Oubre getting into that motor vehicle accident, and B getting hurt, and it was just like smile now, cry later at some point. 1 week Embiid is dropping 70 points, which you were in attendance for. Let's not forget about that. And then the next week,
That's right.
he's out for 2 months with a knee issue. So it was just ups and downs, happiness one day and sadness the next day. And Nick Nurse, I kind of feel a little bit bad for him because he didn't really have all his guys. So we can't really, me personally, speaking for myself, I can't really give him a grade because 2 months he missed his best player for 2 months, and you could tell the team was going up. The team was like up and downs, and the consistency was not there enough. I mean, Paul Reed could not fill. I mean, obviously he can't fill the shoes of Joel Embiid because he can't really. that's not the caliber of player he is. But
Right.
he did the best that he could. Being a defensive anchor, I mean, he can get you rebounds, but being a rim protector, that's not his game. So you could tell that after Embiid went out, the team really struggled offensively and defensively. And Tyrese Maxey did whatever he could. Some nights, I mean, he dropped 50 twice with Embiid not being in the lineup against the
Yep.
Utah Jazz and against the San Antonio Spurs. But sometimes he just needed somebody to go along with him, and you just couldn't get that consistency. You couldn't get somebody who could step up to be that second option night in and night out. The person who we thought could do that was Tobias Harris, but up until this point, we all know Tobias Harris's game. He's super inconsistent, and he proved that in the playoffs as well. So you can't really. I'm seeing people blaming Nick Nurse for the team being the 7th seed, but really you can't really blame him because his best player was gone for majority of the games in the middle of the season.
A lot to unpack with everything that you just said. I will get to Tobias Harris. I have a little eulogy for him. I have a eulogy. I wrote it on an index card. So I have last words to say about him. Hopefully, with
we'll get to him.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that for sure. I do want to acknowledge everybody that's on here in the chat. I want to say hello. Hopefully you're all doing well. We're just talking about some Sixers hoops, and we're reflecting on the season, and then we're going to obviously get into free agency and how big of an offseason this is for Daryl Morey. But before we dive into that, the season itself, okay? The season itself, this Sixers team ended up being a 7 seed, okay?
Right.
Everybody's going to forget about the 3-way tiebreaker and how the Sixers were tied with the Magic. And why am I blanking out on the other team? I
think it was Miami or some Indiana, one of those teams.
I think it was Indiana. Yeah. It was Indiana.
Right.
So everybody's going to forget about that. The Sixers could have been a 6 seed just because of that. Right. And obviously the New York Knicks and the Milwaukee Bucks were going head to head, and the Bucks ended up losing that final game to the Magic. And the Knicks ended up winning, and guess what? They were the 2 seed that way. It was just they were in such a tight race. And I felt like from the get-go, with where the standings were and with the circumstances that they had to deal with Joel's injury, they ended the season on a big winning streak. And they were able to win out the rest of the way. Unfortunately, they were still stuck in this play-in tournament. And I felt like with all those unfortunate circumstances, they were in a tough spot.
Right. I mean, yeah, you hit it on the head right there. With Embiid coming back from injury, you could tell like it was like he didn't even miss any time, and he gets on the floor against that OKC team, which I called on your channel. Appreciate you for allowing me calling that game. The team ends up going on I think 8-game winning streak, 9-game winning streak if you want to count the play-in victory as well. And this team, it was just too little, too late at that point because they had lost so many games in between that stretch that Embiid missed. So those final games right there didn't really help us. Yeah, if we had lost that games, we would have been in a terrible position. But winning those games really didn't help us. It still put us in the play-in. But the team was able to still go into the play-in tournament, win that play-in game. I mean, Nico Batum was so fabulous in that game. I think he dropped like six threes in that game, and they completely demolished the Miami Heat in that second.
And
half.
He had that block.
And he had that block on Tyler Hero. Right. So Nico, he balled out. He balled out in that playing game. We definitely have to give him his props on it. But yeah, Milwaukee didn't really do us a favor because they tanked that final game on purpose. And I mean, I don't really blame them because when you're in a tight race like that, especially in the playoffs, every team wants the favorable matchup. And maybe they thought the Sixers was not a favorable matchup. So
Giannis was injured.
Giannis was injured too. I mean, I think he missed the final 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. Yep. And so I don't really blame them. But the Sixers did what they had to do. They went into the play-in. They won. They beat the Miami Heat, and it set them up for a rematch against the New York Knicks in the first round. I mean, when I say a rematch, I mean the last time we played against the Knicks was in 1989, and I remember my dad was telling me this. He was like, "Yeah, after the Knicks swept the Sixers, and some players on the Knicks team at the time, Charles Oakley and a few other players, they took a broom." And they started sweeping around the spectrum. And when he said that, it was just funny to me. But I expected the Sixers to win this playoff series. But long story short, I think the role players not stepping up really hurt the Sixers' chances of winning because every role player on the Knicks stepped up. I mean, they had 6 or 7 guys averaging double figures or something like that, but we just couldn't get somebody that could go along with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid to win this playoff series. And I think that's where the issue was, in my opinion.
Before I get more into the playoffs, because obviously there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, do you think that the politics of Tobias Harris was another reason why the Sixers ended up being where they were throughout the regular season? Not talking about the postseason. I'm talking about during the regular season.
So, the Tobias Harris thing is very, very funny because, people always used to, they bring up his contract and, whether he deserves that money or not. But, me personally, it's like you gave him the contract already. You signed that contract already. You have to show up for this team no matter what. And in the absence of Joel Embiid, and we keep hearing people saying that Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris is not a good fit because Tobias operates in the same areas where Joel Embiid likes to operate. That free throw line, 18-footer, 16-footer area on that block on that mid post. So you would think that with Joel Embiid being out, Tobias Harris can operate in that space and go to work night in and night out and not have any issues because he wouldn't have to share that area with other players on the floor. Yeah, Tyrese Maxey generates a lot of he goes downhill. He generates a lot of rim pressure, and sometimes he gets to the basket. But for the most part, Maxey doesn't solely operate on that mid block area. So you would expect Tobias Harris to step his game up and prove not only to Sixer fans but prove to the world that he could actually be that player and he could actually be that third option / second option if the best player is gone, and he just could not produce that. He just couldn't produce at a very, very high level for the Sixers team. And we could definitely say that Tobias Harris not stepping up really hurt the Sixers' chances as well for sure. And
do you think?
Yeah,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I didn't mean
No,
to
go
cut you
ahead.
off. Do you think that it was the fact that Tobias didn't step up, or do you think that it was a combination of the politics that was occurring within the organization on letting Tobias Harris play and him not stepping up? Because I think it's a combination of both. Okay, I relate this. I know that you're not really like a baseball guy, but
Right.
I relate this to Trey Turner from last year. I'm sure that you've heard about the standing ovation. I'm sure that you heard about like how he was a star that came over to the Phillies, and he was batting in the 2 spot for months, and
Right.
he was playing every single day. But he was almost, at the time, like when it came to May, he was almost an automatic out. Like he would strike out, he would chase after pitches that were just so bad. And finally, the manager, Rob Thompson, like it got to the point where we were saying in June that Rob needs to start to bench him, or he needs to move him down at least in the lineup. And he finally did that in July, but he was still struggling. And then finally August came, and when he got the standing ovation from the fans saying that I'm here for you, and all that type of stuff, to support him, he went on this magical run. My question is, do you think so? I'm relating that whole thing because I feel like Trey was struggling, and obviously that's on Trey, but it gets to a certain point where a manager or a coach has to make a decision, to try to make the team better. And Rob, I thought, waited a little bit or way too long to even just move Trey down in the lineup. And I'm not saying that this is a Nick Nurse thing, but ultimately at the end of the day, when one of your quote unquote max players, well, he really is a max player, but he's supposed to be one of your stars, essentially, when he's not producing, that's on him. But do you think that within the organization that they probably should have said, you know what? He's not really producing for us. Maybe he should be coming off the bench, or maybe he should be doing a little bit less, and maybe we shouldn't be making as many play calls for him. I hope you understand like what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. And me personally, I've actually thought about that, but then again, I come to this conclusion: if Tobias Harris had been benched, who was possibly the right fit or the best fit to insert into his position and will step up into that second option role? Because I kept hearing people saying, "Oh, Ricky Council could do it. Ricky Council could do it," and I get that. And Ricky Council, no doubt, he is a baller. Both of us watched him play in the G League game against the Maine Celtics about 2 months ago. We know his game. But me personally, I don't really think that you could have inserted him into that starting lineup and expect him to be a second option on that team, because for number one, he's a rookie, and number two, he's an undrafted player, and it's very, very difficult. I think I listened to his interview or something like that, and he says as an undrafted player, it's very, very difficult to crack the rotation and get significant minutes, get consistent minutes. So me personally, I don't really think that the Sixers had another option. I just think that Tobias Harris was the only option that we had, and with him not being hurt, with him being, like you said, a max contract player, he was supposed to step up. And yes, don't get us wrong. I mean, we're not saying that he never stepped up at all at no point in the season. I mean, I remember against the Houston Rockets, we had success by putting him on Alperen Şengün. Shout out to Şengün. He's going to be one of the best up and coming star players in the league. And he was able to slow him down a little bit. He didn't stop him, but he was able to slow him down and make him ineffective at some points. And against the Sacramento Kings as well, Nick Nurse put him on Domantas Sabonis, and he did an absolute great job on him. But me personally, I don't think that benching him was going to be the answer. Now, yeah, if you bench him, who would you put in his role that's going to step up for you? If we had that option, if we had somebody who's going to step up, then yes, I think we should have definitely benched him. Nick Nurse should have definitely benched him. But me personally, I believe that we didn't really have another replacement for Tobias Harris. So I'm just rolling with Nick Nurse at that point. I was okay with Nick Nurse continuing to play him and trying to get his confidence back. But ultimately, it didn't really end in a positive result. The Sixers kept being a bad team. And yes, if Tobias Harris had stepped up and if he had played to the standard that we hold him to, the Sixers would have definitely been in a much better situation. But that was not the case.
Right. I think that it's important for us when we're evaluating the season as a whole, we have to think about what really was part of the roster construction when we were entering into the season. Everybody forgets, but we had James Harden. We had James Harden on this team entering into the season, and PJ Tucker. We had PJ Tucker as well, and we had to trade them, of course. I still believe, and you can disagree with me on this, I think that both teams got what they wanted. I think it was a good trade for what it was for both teams. I would still get Nico Batum. I would still get Robert Covington, Marcus Morris Sr., and KJ Martin. I thought that was a really good trade for the Sixers. All of them were on expiring contracts. They also got 2 draft picks too, I believe, from that trade too.
Right.
So
and a pick swap.
Yeah, and a pick swap as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Daryl Morey, to his credit, actually did a good job with getting rid of James Harden, and with that unfortunate circumstance again that the Sixers have had to deal with. This franchise is just cursed. But I think that when we talk about the season in totality, that has to be a part of the equation too, because we didn't know if James was really even gonna be traded. We had a feeling that he was going to be traded. We knew that he didn't want to play here, but Daryl could have done what he did to Ben Simmons and waited out. and he didn't do it. And that's what I was a little bit concerned about too. But Tyrese Maxey was able to ascend into into this new role. I think that when we look at the season just in totality, we have to think about what it was like from start to finish. And I think that overall that this team, I know that they didn't get to the result that they wanted to be at, but in years past, I'm more upset if we lose in the first round. This year, I didn't really feel that way.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. And me personally, I felt the same way too. And then in the same breath, I didn't feel the same way because as much as I believe in the Sixers, I thought the Sixers could have definitely defeated the New York Knicks in the first round. And
Sure.
had we gotten into the second round, we probably would have taken care of the Indiana Pacers. But at the same time, like you just said, the James Harden situation, trading James Harden and PJ Tucker and getting, 4 or 5, I think now 4 players back up. We got Marcus Morris Sr., Nico Batum, Robert Covington, and KJ Martin. Then it's like you have to start all over again because these guys were not in training camp. So you have to, it's a quick process at that point. You have to build. You have to build what you call it. You have to build chemistry with these new caliber players, and then Robert Covington going out, and a few of the other players going out as well, and then ultimately Joel Embiid going out, missing those 2 months. And so when you said
trade deadline with trading away Springer and then getting Kyle Lowry and getting Buddy Hield,
Buddy Hield, yeah, he was a huge addition in terms of the floor space into this team, in terms of adding shooters to this team. But yeah, I'm right there with you that I'm not really pissed that we lost to the Knicks. I think had our role players stepped up, had Tobias Harris and a few other players had stepped up, we probably would have beaten the Knicks for sure. But I'm not trying to make this about the Knicks. It's about the Sixers. But I just want to ask you this question.
Go for it.
Do you think Nick Nurse did a good job? Because me personally, I believe it's not fair because he didn't really have all his guys for an extended amount of time, and guys being in and out the lineups, and Embiid missing 2 months. Do you think he did a good job as a head coach for the Sixers
during the regular season or during the postseason, or just like the whole? Okay, during the regular season, I did. I thought that he did the best job that he could. I was happy with. Sometimes when you're given a certain roster, you have to get the most out of everybody.
Right.
And I really thought that Nick Nurse pushed all the right buttons at times. There were times where I actually saw him take over a game. I know that they were down by 30 against the Pelicans at halftime. They didn't get off on the best foot, but they almost won that game. That was without Maxey. That was without Tobias. That was without Joel Embiid. And yet they almost won that game. And he was still locked in. I thought that from a head coaching perspective, I still believe that he's the best head coach, like in all of the Philly sports. I think that when it comes to just X's and O's and making plays, I noticed that the team, even without their big guys, when they had to play down a man almost every single night, they executed at a very high level. And I would always say that the Sixers had 3 all-stars on the team, and it was Embiid, Maxey, and Nick Nurse, because that man was phenomenal. And even in the playing game, he outcoached Eric Spoelstra again. And I really believe that just from a tactical standpoint, he did everything that he possibly could during the regular season to put the team in a good position to succeed.
Definitely.
He got the most out of Paul Reed. He got the most out of Nico Batum. He got the most out of KJ Martin. We said that KJ Martin coming into Philly was unplayable, but then what he would do is he would put him in defensive sets and defensive rotations, and he would be down on the block, and sometimes he'd guard guys that were bigger than him, and he would get rebounds.
Right. He was in
Right.
small ball center at some point in games sometimes. So
He was.
yeah.
Yeah. And that stuff would have never happened under you know who.
Right, and we're not even gonna we're not even gonna say his name, but yeah, I'm right there. Yeah, but I agree with you, and a lot of people forget when Embiid was in the lineup, the Sixers were a top three in offensive rating, top three in defensive rating, and top three in net rating as well. And the Sixers were playing at a faster pace. The ball was moving, players were moving as well. I mean, yeah, Embiid was dominating because he's the best player. We all know Embiid, but the other players were also eating. I mean, Embiid was finding open shooters. I think Embiid averaged the most assists that he's ever averaged in his career. Guys were, shooting the lights out of the ball. Guys were moving. Guys were cutting, and guys were connected on the defensive side of the ball as well. And these kind of things contributed to the team being one of the best teams offensively, defensively, and that's credit to Nick Nurse because when you know who was here, this team was not as connected playing as a team when he was here. But when Nick Nurse took over, when he became the coach, you could tell that, he absolutely transformed the team's offensive identity and the defensive identity as well. It's just a shame that some players got hurt and players that were really contributing to the team's success was not there. And then he had to, go different routes and, the consistency wasn't there. So at the end, the Sixers ended with, I think, they were top 15 in defense and top 10 in offense. But had Embiid played and had he had all his guys healthy, the Sixers would have been in a much different position than they were when they finished the season.
And look, Phil, thank you so much for being here. But I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you, and I'm sure that DFJ has his thoughts about this too. But if you look at how many times the Sixers would play ISO basketball under their previous head coach. Look at how many times, every time James Harden had the ball and Joel Embiid had the ball, it was sort of like Tyrese Maxey was the third wheel. We had a coach that actually said that Tyrese Maxey should be coming off the bench. And when we're talking about Nick Nurse, Joel Embiid's ISO numbers, statistically speaking, last year were even lower.
Right.
A lot of the times, his assist numbers were actually up more because this head coach said you can't play ISO ball to win. Right. So to say that Nick Nurse was very average, I respectfully disagree with that, just from that perspective. But what say you?
I mean, I disagree as well. He says the offense looked pretty much the same, which is not true. And alluding to the point that you brought up, in the playoffs under Doc Rivers, against the Boston Celtics in fourth quarters, you could see they'll just clear one side of the floor and just let him beat ISO and put all the other guys at one side of the floor. And offenses like that, it's easy to guard and it's easy to stop because you're only guarding one player. The other guys on the team are not moving, they're not cutting, they're not providing any spacing whatsoever. So it's easy to get a stop. It's easy to game plan for it. But under Nick Nurse, you saw guys moving around. You saw Kelly Oubre get a lot of backdoor cuts and getting a lot of easy points.
Off ball screens,
right?
Yep.
We saw a lot of flex screens. We saw a lot of cross screens. We saw a lot of pin downs. Guys were, shooting the lights out of the ball. Yeah. And Embiid's assist also went up. That's another point. I mean, people don't want to bring that up. Embiid under Doc Rivers was not averaging the assist numbers that he was averaging under Nick Nurse. So when Phil says that the offense was pretty much the same, I absolutely disagree with it. And also, like you said, Embiid's ISO numbers went down. I think at some point, last 2 seasons, he was ISOing on 15% on his possessions. But under Nick Nurse, he was only ISOing like 6% or 7% of his possessions. So that right there, Phil, I respectfully disagree as well. Now, it wasn't perfect. We're not saying it was perfect, but it was absolutely better than what it was the year before.
Oh, it was.
I'll say that.
I thought it was leaps and bounds better. But anyhow, look, I know that we're about like 30 minutes into this. I do want to get into the playoffs because I know that you touched on it earlier. The role players for the Knicks absolutely stepped up. What did go wrong for the Sixers in that round against the Knicks? Man. Was it the refs? Was it? I mean, I don't like to blame things on the refs, but But do you think that it was Embiid's health? Do you think that it was just they got ran out of the gym by a better team or a more physical team? Why do you think that they lost?
I appreciate you for asking me this question. And I mean, if you look at the stats, the Knicks only beat us by
1
point,
point.
just 1 point.
154 to 153.
1 point. So, when you, I mean, with the referees,
Did I
yeah,
say
they had
154
something.
153?
Yeah, it was around that range. But with the referees, I mean, in game two, we all saw what happened. Nick Nurse clearly calling for a timeout. The refs completely ignored them when Maxey had the ball on the floor. So I mean, we could say refs had something to do with it, but just in one game. But I just think that if you ask me this question, me personally, my one word, I mean, not one word answer, but my answer is the role players for the Knicks stepped up more than the role players on the Sixers. And that's how I feel about it, because even with Embiid being at 70%, I mean, he was recovering from the knee surgery that he had. Embiid was still, he was pretty effective. I mean, he averaged like what, 34 points. He led the playoffs in points per game. I mean, to now, nobody's averaging more points than him. So Embiid absolutely showed up. Now, the Knicks did kill us on the glass. I'm not gonna fight that. I mean, I was about to say Josh Harris, but Josh Hart. I mean, Josh Hart being 6'4", 6'4", 6'5", playing the power forward position. And,
Yep.
he's getting all these rebounds over Tobias Harris. And, I mean, some of the rebounds he was getting was uncontested because the Sixers were not boxing out. The Sixers were not, putting a body on somebody to prevent them from getting rebounds. And you add that to OG getting rebounds, Isaiah Hartenstein getting rebounds. I think in some of the games, Jalen Brunson was also getting rebounds. So on the defensive side of the floor, they out hustled the Sixers. I will give the Knicks that. And on the offensive side of the floor, they outplayed us. They outplayed the role players on the Sixers, and that's just how it is. I mean, if you got six guys on the other team averaging double figures, and then on your team you only got three guys averaging double figures. I think Embiid averaged double figures, Maxey averaged double figures, and I think Kelly Oubre, I could be wrong, but I think Kelly Oubre averaged double figures in that series. But yeah, they stepped up more than we did. And you got Tobias Harris, who only averaged 9 points in the series. That's not really going to help you. And getting outplayed by Josh Harris. Why do I keep saying Josh Harris?
Josh Hardenstein.
Josh
No,
Hart.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And then Tobias Harris getting outplayed by Josh Hart. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely outplayed. And it was certain points where I was just saying to myself, like, bro, you're bigger than this dude. You can bully him on the block every single time. And it wasn't that you were not getting the ball. You were getting the ball in your spots, but you were just not converting. You were just not being aggressive. You were just letting the defense off the hook. And that right there, that with, the Knicks getting more rebounds, their role players stepping up. I think these were all reasons why the Sixers lost in the first round. I don't think it had anything to do with Nick Nurse. Some guys he didn't get the production that he thought he was going to get from some other guys like Buddy Hield. But in my opinion, I think he made the necessary adjustments. He played Cameron Payne. Sometimes he limited Paul Reed's minutes, which I'm gonna get to Paul Reed, but I'm gonna let you go before I unload on Paul Reed.
Well, I wanted to get to Phil's comment here because I actually, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this too. I'm not going to say that Nick was a huge blame because at the end of the day, the players that they had didn't step up. Like the role players, they can only do so much. I thought that Nick, from a play calling tactical standpoint, did what he could, but the rotations that Nick had were not so good. And I still go back to game 6 and I'm thinking to myself, well, Buddy Hield as the hot hand, why is he not playing in the second half? Like he played in the fourth quarter. I remember that, to start off the fourth quarter. But if my backs are against the wall and I'm playing at MSG and Buddy Hield as the hot hand, I want him start in the third quarter. And I don't understand. I don't know if he talked about it during his last game press conference, but I really thought like that was just one of the moves that I just couldn't get behind, having Buddy Hield come off the bench to start off the second half. I didn't agree with that. I really didn't agree with that. And there were other times too where I felt like I know that Nick Nurse has his hands tied behind his back,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to match athleticism with athleticism.
Right.
And I know that he probably wasn't going to do it anyways. It doesn't shock me. I still would have put in Ricky Council for maybe 4 minutes of the game.
Right. And I mean, I don't disagree with you not one bit. I mean, when you talk about the game 6, which was actually in Philly, not in MSG,
Yeah.
I
Did I
agree
say?
that
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
did
was in
say
Philly.
that.
Yeah, I agree that Buddy Hield should have gotten more minutes because he had the hot hand. I think he dropped like 4 threes. I mean, he brought the Sixers were down by
Yep.
15 at the end of the first. So yeah, he had the hot hand. And on top of that, Tobias Harris was absolutely giving you nothing. He had 0 points in that game. So I agree with you that his rotation. Yeah. His rotations in Game 6 was not. It could have been a little bit better, but which you're bringing up the point that you should match athleticism with athleticism. I also agree with you on that, but I mean, we know some of these coaches are a little bit hard headed. Sometimes they get in your way. Sometimes, and it's literally my way or the hard way, and
Right.
sometimes they just don't. They think a little bit too much, and it's just like, yo, you
They
had that.
overcomplicate
They
things.
overcomplicate stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
on their ends in terms of the rotations and the play calling and what have you. And yeah, I mean, I definitely would have played Ricky Council because the Knicks are, they were hustling, grabbing
Yep.
rebounds, and you have to match athleticism with athleticism. You
You
cannot
have to.
play somebody who's not athletic with these guys. And Ricky Council, I mean, rookie season, 6'4", jumps out the gym. I mean, I definitely would
Yep.
have given him some minutes. And I used to say that head coaches don't play their rookies, but I need to stop saying it because some coaches who've won championships, they play their rookies sometimes. I mean, look at Eric Spoelstra. He was
Yep.
given Jaime
Gabe
Jaquez,
Vincent.
yeah, Gabe Vincent, Jaime Jaquez, and all those guys minutes.
Yep.
And yeah, I know Jaime Jaquez. I know Ricky Council is not better than Jaime Jaquez, but I mean, sometimes you just have to try it. I mean, you just have to give it a try.
You have
Not
to.
even in Game 6, but I think earlier on in the series, if he had, just give him a few minutes and see what he can give you offensively and defensively. I mean, we know he can. He's definitely going to generate rim pressure. He's definitely going to attack the basket. He's going to rebound the basketball. He's going to give you effort. He's not going to be lazy and take plays off. We know that's not what he's going to do.
Yep.
Absolutely not. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Yep. I think that was another thing. I'm not saying that they lost because of that, because ultimately the guys on the floor didn't step up.
Right.
And I I I just think that they could have had a better chance,
Yeah.
especially in game 6,
Right.
if Buddy Hield was playing more. And it's not even just Buddy, but there were even a couple of times too where I thought, like in game 2 or in game 3, he would go to these lineups where I scratch my head and I'm thinking, well, why is Paul Reed out there for this long?
Yeah. Game two. Game two. Yeah. Right. I asked myself that same question too. And funny enough, before the series started, Paul Reed was on a podcast, running his mouth saying that
You can't do that.
we
You
wanted the
can't do
Knicks. That
that.
was the easiest matchup. So you would think that he would step up in this series.
Yep.
And he was the only guy on the team that had a negative box plus minus. He was the only guy. Now, yeah, we know he doesn't. I mean, all the other guys play with Embiid, but Paul Reed is the only guy that doesn't play with that doesn't play with Embiid. So, his plus minus is not going to look the same. But I mean, when he stepped on the floor, he wasn't really giving you anything offensively. Yeah, he grabbed a few rebounds, but I mean, fouling here and there, sending the Knicks to the line, and sometimes missing defensive assignments, not rotating, not communicating, and not being there on the offensive side of the floor, not giving the Sixers anything. And if you notice, every single time that Embiid went to the bench, that's when the Knicks went on the run. And it forced Nick Nurse. It gave him no other choice but to put Embiid in the game. And we saw Embiid play, I think, in game 4 and 5 or whatever. Embiid was playing the entire second half, which was like, yo, you're over exerting this guy because he just came off
Yep.
a knee surgery. you have to give him some time. You have to find some time to, give him some kind of rest. And I believe in game 4, with him playing the entire second half, as well, ultimately led the Sixers to lose that game, because you could tell he was clearly gassed. And when he was even going off for rebounds, he's not getting off the floor. When he's shooting those mid-range shots, he's not, the lift is not there, and you could clearly tell. And if Paul Reed had given the Sixers a little bit of offensive production, yeah, the Sixers probably have a chance to win this to win the series. But with Paul Reed, I mean, I just want to know your thoughts on Paul Reed and what you thought about him in the series.
I was disappointed. I know that Paul can only do so much, but I expected that the effort was going to be there more, and I felt like, I'm not saying that he didn't try, because that is an understatement, and I feel like that even as somebody in the part of the media, you can't say stuff like that.
Right.
But what I will say is that I thought that he was not putting himself into better positions to succeed. Sometimes, that in certain moments, you have to get a rebound. There was one game where I believe he had 1 rebound in like 12 minutes. I can't remember which game it was, but if I'm supposed to do a job, okay, if my team needs me for one reason, okay, and I have to do a job for them, I'm not focusing on a lot of other things except for that. I want to try to master that as best as I can. If guys are boxing me out, I'm going to try to find a way during film sessions and even during practices and during the game. I'm watching and I'm trying to figure out, well, what are these guys doing differently? What's Hardenstein doing differently? And I just thought that Paul Reed wasn't putting himself into better positions to get rebounds. And
Right.
I don't know if that falls necessarily on Nick Nurse, because I think that Nick Nurse also had to do a better job with that as well. But Paul Reed ultimately for himself did not do what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I mean, with the rebound, me personally, I think the Sixers should have rebounded as a team, and one guy cannot get all the rebounds. You can't box somebody out, because sometimes how the Knicks were getting rebounds was sometimes Hartenstein will be boxing out whether it's Embiid or Paul Reed, whoever he would be boxing out on the offensive glass, and then Josh Hart will come running out of nowhere and he'll get the rebound. Right. And it was like, yo, somebody has to get that guy. Paul Reed or Embiid cannot box out their man, and then on the other flip side, box out Josh Hart, who was just coming in for the offensive rebound. So I think Nick Nurse should have definitely did a good job on that, putting guys on specific players in specific areas as well in terms of getting the rebounds, because me personally, from what I'm aware of, guys, they put guys in different spots to get the offensive rebounds. And sometimes the spacing on the floor, I mean, we could question it. We can give Nick Nurse the blame. Sure. But I think we can give Paul Reed the blame, and then we can also give Nick Nurse the blame for the spacing on the floor. And we can give Paul Reed blame for not boxing out his man as well. So sometimes he'll just leave his man and they get the offensive rebound. And Embiid as well. Sure. We're not letting Embiid off the hook. I mean, he was hurt, but me personally, if you step on the court, you're on the floor.
If you're playing, guess what? You're playing.
You're playing, right? So we're not going to make any excuses for you. I mean, I think Hartenstein got the offensive rebound over him, and he kicked it out to Brunson. Brunson swung it to DiVincenzo, and he hit the game winner in game 2. Yep. If Embiid had got that rebound, we probably are having a different conversation now. So it's not only on Nick Nurse, it's not only on Paul Reed. We give Embiid the blame as well. We give Tobias Harris the blame as well too. Don't get it wrong.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I'm not and look, I'm not saying that Paul Reed can pick up everybody else's slack, but what I am saying is that if he was if that was supposed to be his role, okay, if I'm on a team, okay, and my job, because I'm really good at facilitating the basketball, If my job is to get my teammates involved, I'm going to try to find a way to get my teammates involved. And maybe I don't come up with an assist, but maybe I come up with a hockey assist. Or maybe that assist leads into something else that doesn't show up on the box score stat sheets, but it made an impact, on the shot. Right. And I'm going to try to find ways, whether I'm studying film, whether I'm going over it during practices, or even as I'm in the game and I'm watching from the bench. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is my opposition doing on the floor right now, and how can I get an advantage? I'm not saying that it's easy, but that's what I'm thinking. And I feel like at times Paul wasn't doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the comment section.
You know, like what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah, I get you. I get what you mean, but I'm looking at the comment section, right? And Phil says, see, when I watch the Sixers, I'm not a biased fan. I also look at the games as a basketball fan, which, I mean, that's true. I mean, me personally, I can't speak for Jay, but I watch the game as a fan as well. And we're not just blaming the Sixers and not giving the Knicks credit. I give the Knicks all the credit in the world. I give Tom Thibodeau all the credit in the world for, realizing the Sixers' weaknesses and capitalizing on it. Like, yo, they're not a good rebounding team. I'm going to send 3 guys on the offensive glass every single time to overwhelm them and get second chance opportunities out of it. I give him credit for that. I give him credit for shutting down Tyrese Maxey in Game 6. I mean, he made the decision like, yo, you're not going off on us like you did in Game 5. You're not going to go off on us. And he shut him down. I think Maxey was 5 of 16, 5 of 17. So he made that adjustment right there. So we give him credit. But at the same time, we also have to point out what the Sixers could have done better to have won the series. We could also point out what Nick Nurse could have done better to give the Sixers a chance. We can also point to the role players and everybody else. So we're not just, blaming Sixers and not giving credit. We're doing both at the same time.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. So after that whole season, okay, I want us to, before we get into the offseason, I know that we're like 50 minutes into this, but I did want to give letter grades to the starting 5. Okay, we don't have to do the bench. We don't have to do the bench, but all right. In a season totality, let's start off with Tyrese Maxey. Okay. What letter grade? And then, of course, I'll give mine. But with how the season went down, what letter grade are you going to give him from start to finish?
From start to finish, I will give Tyrese Maxey an A-. And the reason why it's not an A is because I believe, the reason why I'm not giving him an A is that I believe in some games that Embiid did not play down the stretch in the fourth quarter, I felt like he was being a little bit passive. And, I felt like he should have been more aggressive to, demand the ball and, try to get his own shot, try to, drive to the basket. But with him being passive and him not being aggressive, games like that really cost the Sixers. And I think the Sixers lost almost every single time he was not aggressive down the stretch. And the Sixers ended up losing. I remember against the Brooklyn Nets, that game, he wasn't aggressive down the stretch. Against the Memphis Grizzlies that we covered on my channel, he wasn't aggressive. I mean, in that game in particular, he was in foul. I think he was in foul trouble or something like that. So when you're in foul trouble, your aggressiveness is a little bit limited, because if you're more aggressive, you could end up, getting called for offensive fouls and, you foul out of the game. But I felt like if he was more aggressive, Sixers would have had a chance to win. But yeah, I give him an A- because he absolutely stepped up. I didn't see him, making this kind of jump in year 4, but him being the lead guard, he stepped up and absolutely was a fantastic Batman. I mean, fantastic Robin to Embiid's Batman for sure.
I think that he showed glimpses of me and Batman too, and that's why I'm giving this guy an A, because yes, the constructive criticism that you gave him is true, but this guy was told coming into the year, guess what? You're going to be the offense. you're going to be our primary ball handler, and you're going to be splitting that with Joel, and you need to get more reps on the ball. Do you realize how much of a leap that he took this year being on the ball than he's ever had, like throughout his NBA career?
Wait, say that again.
Do you realize how much of a leap he had with just handling the basketball compared to like previous years? Like he wasn't a primary ball handler, and his usage rate was a lot higher this year than it was even in years past. Not even close.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that he still didn't turn the ball over that much, you would just think that naturally speaking that he would turn it over more, but he didn't.
Right.
And so I thought that he really took another leap this year. I know that the 3-point numbers were down, but let's look into those 3-point numbers, because how many times this year was he actually being guarded at the 3-point line? And how many of the threes that he took were off the dribble? Like, it wasn't in years past, it was more of just catch and shoot threes.
Right.
And he was more wide open. Now he's getting contested a lot. And he's shooting off the dribble. And oh, by the way, when he's driving it down the lane now, I think it's safe to say that him and Kyrie Irving are the best finishers in basketball. When it comes to just finishing at the rim, laying it up and in, that work of art that he just has, finishing with the right, finishing with the left. I thought he could have finished with the left a little bit more at times, but just the ways that he was being creative with the ball, driving into traffic, he did an incredible job. And I still thought that he could have gotten more foul calls.
Right.
And whatever. His defense stepped up this year. He took more steps defensively. I'm not telling you that he's a great defensive player, but he did. He played much better on-ball defense this year than in years past. So I have to give him an A, considering what happened to the team, what happened to Joel Embiid, like what the circumstances were. He had to become the number one option, and I think that was actually a blessing in disguise for him, because you're not being overshadowed by just Joel now. It's your show, kid.
Right.
You're given the keys. You got to produce.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I really felt like with all the circumstances that was put on this 23-year-old kid, when you really do think about it, he stepped up. He really did. A lot of guys in the NBA at the age of 23 could not do what Tyrese Maxey did this year compared to last year.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I mean, in games, I mean, there are games where he stepped up huge. Like you said, there's not too many people that's 23 years old that could have stepped up the way he did. And games where he won for the Sixers against the Utah Jazz, who he was dealing with the ankle injury, but he still, didn't want to leave his teammates hanging. He came out, showed up and He balled out 50 points, hit clutch three after clutch three, making clutch plays, being double teamed, finding the right guys, making the right passes, not turning the ball over. And his assist to turnover ratios was pretty good than what I expected it to be. It was so good. I mean, you would think that him being a lead guard for the first time, the teams were going to guard him in a way that he was going to turn the ball over, but it wasn't the case. His ball security was so good. He showed up huge for the Sixers. He stepped up huge, and I expect him to take a bigger leap even next year. So shout out to Tyrese Maxey. We do see him doing great things with the 76ers.
Let's talk about our next guy, Kyle Lowry. What grade are you going to give him?
Yeah. See,
what a transition from Tyrese to Kyle Lowry.
Right. Shout out to Kyle Lowry, man. Grew up like 15 minutes away from where he grew up. But he came in the middle of the season, buyout candidate, came on the team, and in the regular season, I'm not gonna do playoffs, but in the regular season, there were some games where he took some of the ball handling duties away from Maxey, and we used Maxey as an off ball player, and he was coming off those screens. And Kyle Lowry was being a great decision maker. Sometimes when he was open, He'll make a few threes. And one thing that people don't talk about because you never see it on the stat sheet, his ability to draw charges. I mean, how many charges did he draw? How many charges do you think he drew? It was a lot.
Like
I mean,
13
more
at
definitely.
least.
Wait, say it again.
At least 13.
Yeah, it was more than Tobias Harris. But me personally, I'll give Kyle Lowry because he didn't play a lot of games for the Sixers. It wasn't a full season, but in the games that he played for the Sixers in the regular season, I'll give Kyle Lowry a C. And
Okay.
I'm not giving him a B because he didn't play a lot of games, and it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him for that. But in the games that he played in, what he did for the team, his leadership, his defense on the floor. I mean, not on ball defense, but off ball defense. Getting into the right spots at the right time, drawing charges, forcing guys to make commit offensive fouls. I'll definitely give him a C for sure.
And I'm going to give him a C plus, and I'm not being disrespectful to him. I actually thought that he actually made the team better in different ways that they didn't have. He gave them another. I know that he's 37 years old, but I do think that if the Sixers had another really good ball handler, I think that him coming off the bench would have been the best role for him. We knew that he couldn't provide a lot of offense on a night-to-night basis, but he's a leader. He was a veteran. He would dive after loose balls. I mean, one time he literally hit Matt Cord, like just diving after a loose ball, going into the scorer's table. He puts his body on the line.
Right.
And
at 37 years old.
At 37 years old, that's what he's doing. But I'm giving him a C plus because I thought that he was good in stretches, but he couldn't do like what he did in years past. And I have to give him a C plus because of that. And it's not his fault.
It's not his fault. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Next. All right, we're gonna fire through these quickly. Kelly Oubre.
I'll give Kelly Oubre a C plus. And
okay.
Wait. I'll give him a B. My fault.
Okay.
I give him a B too. I give him a B because imagine before we signed Kelly Oubre, he was a free agent. No team wanted to sign him. We signed him like 2 weeks before training camp, and he stepped in huge for the Sixers. And some games he was the second option when Embiid was not playing, and in the playoffs he was the clear-cut third option. On top of guarding Jalen Brunson and making it difficult for him, he had Jalen Brunson in the straitjacket in games 1 and 2. So I definitely give him a B. His shooting could get better, but I mean the amount of pressure he generates going downhill is just insane. And if he could play make out of those when guys collapse the defense on him, and if he could play make and find guys in the opposite corners and in the weak side corners, the Sixers could definitely benefit from that for sure. But yeah, a B.
I'm going to give him a B as well because a guy that signs a veteran minimum contract, you're never going to find a guy that gives you that type of production where I actually said at some point, even if you take Tobias Harris's contract and you put that into Kelly Oubre and you swap the contracts, that's sort of like how Kelly Oubre, I'm not saying that Kelly Oubre was a superstar, but you would take that. You would take that more any day just from the production that Kelly gave you. And Kelly balled out almost every single night. He gave it all effort, and he was a dog out there. And at the end of the day, like, you can't rely on him as a third option. And it's no disrespect to him, but he was a really good piece for the Sixers this year, and I hope that he comes back. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm going to give him a B. And then we're going to go to Joel Embiid. We're going to skip over the power forward position because I think that we both know what letter grades we're going to give that guy.
Right.
But
Joel Embiid A plus. I mean, he was playing at a ridiculous.
Oof.
He was playing at a ridiculous level before he got hurt. I mean, he was scoring. He was generating. I think his points per minute was higher than what Wilt Chamberlain was doing back in 1962. So. And he had the Sixers in a better position. He was going to be the unanimous MVP had he not gotten hurt. And, His playmaking got better. His defense was better as well. Being a rim protector, being a paint patroller. I mean, what he was doing this season, that was probably one of the. If he had finished this season with no injuries, that would have been one of the
That
greatest
would have been
individual
the
seasons.
historic, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been the
Historic.
greatest individual season that I've ever witnessed. So I'm giving Embiid an A plus for sure. I mean, yeah, I know he got hurt, but yeah, I'm giving him an A plus.
In my book, there's no such thing as an A plus. So I'm gonna give him an A. I'm kidding. I do have A pluses, but it is hard to reach that level. I'm only giving him an A. I was gonna give him an A plus, but I'm giving him an A because yeah, he was outstanding this year. I know that the regular season he was doing great. He was doing really, really good things, but I give him an A because I'm not saying that it's his fault. I know that the injuries hindered him in a lot of ways. I still feel like I don't think that he could have done more, but I'm giving him an A because he played really, really well. It's
Right.
it's just hard for me to give A pluses. It really is. Like I can't
That's
really
fine.
say anything bad about him because he actually had a really good playoff run for what it was. Game 5, if I'm being nitpicky, I did not like what happened in Game 3 with him holding on to Hardenstein's to Mitchell Robinson's ankle. I thought that he could have gotten ejected for that, and I was a little bit nervous because Joel can't do that. But to his credit, he had 50 points in that game, and he stepped up in the third quarter. But he was not playing really well in that first half, and that was like, this is me being super, super nitpicky, by the way.
Yeah.
But like that, I thought overall he had a really good year, and
Right.
I wish that he could have stayed healthy because I think that they would have had a different opponent to play, and they could have been a 3 seed. And guess what? Home court advantage changes everything.
Right.
So, but the Knicks were obviously the better team, and I can't not say that. You know, I have to accept that the Knicks played better down the stretch. Did they get some calls going their way? They did. Are they petty at times? Absolutely. Can I stand their fan base?
No.
But, you know, at this point, it is what it is.
Right.
All right. So we're an hour into this. I want to talk about this offseason, okay? Because people were saying at the end of the season that the future looks bright for the Sixers, and I was one of those guys in the very beginning. But now that I've had a couple of weeks to just hit that woosah button and just take a quick breath and clean out the fog with my glasses. My glasses got really dirty the other way, so I had to clean them up, and now I see things really, really clearly.
Mhm.
And I am scared. I am really nervous about what the Sixers are going to do next in the offseason and how they're going to attack this thing. I think it's bad timing for going star hunting, and I know what Daryl is going to do. He's going to want to try to go for another star. And I think that there's something to be said about what Joel Embiid did say during the season, that consistency does matter. Where do you stand on what the Sixers should do?
Man.
If you're Daryl Morey, actually, let me put it to you this way. If you're Daryl Morey, okay, you're the president of basketball operations, okay, he gives you the keys, and he just says, you know what? You're going to be the captain of the ship, and we're going to follow you. How do we make this team better? What are you doing?
How do I make this team better is number one, which this question actually goes into the what you call it, the title of the show. What's the biggest priority of this for the Sixers in this offseason? For me personally, I think it's not just one priority, it's multiple, but I think the first one and the most important one is to make sure that Joel Embiid gets healthy for next year. Now, we know he's going to be playing in the Olympics. It's probably like a month or two away. I don't know when exactly it's going to be, but I think one of the biggest priorities is to make sure he's healthy because he's the best player on this team, and this team goes as far as Joel Embiid goes. So that's number one. But in terms of, roster construction, in terms of free agencies and, who to sign, who to trade, me personally, if I was Daryl Morey. Now, yeah, you did say he is going to go for star players, which we know him. But me personally, if going for a star is not going to prevent me from filling this roster with role players, like role players that can actually step up in the postseason, then yes, I would do it. But we already know star players, I mean, having 3 max players on one team is not going to help you build the roster to fill in with the role players that can absolutely step up in the playoffs and give you good minutes like the Knicks. You know, if you go for a third star, you don't get to have a team that's full of depth. So, me personally, I just think that we just need number one, we need a backup center. And no disrespect to Paul Reed. I mean, we know Paul Reed. I mean, he's good, but Paul Reed, uh, yeah, it's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. For what the Sixers need, you don't really provide what the Sixers need. So, me personally, I'll get a backup big, number one, and number two, I'll get an athletic power forward who can stretch the floor as well. I'll get an athletic stretch four. And one of the players in my mind is Kelly Olynyk. Now, I don't know if he's a free agent or whatever, but a caliber player like that who can stretch the floor, who can also be a paint presence, who can get rebounds, who can guard the rim, and who can be relied upon to be productive on the offensive side of the floor. That's who I'm going to go for number two. And then number three, I just get another point guard because Kyle Lowry's not returning. I mean, get another guard player, not necessarily a point guard. I mean, in today's game, we have a lot of combo guards. So I just think getting another guard player who's a little bit bigger than Maxey, because me personally, I don't believe in what I call midget backcourts. I don't believe in, having 2 small guards. I don't believe in having 2 small guards. I don't believe in the midget backcourt. So, getting somebody a little bit bigger.
Wow. Midget Maxey? Oh my God.
A midget backcourt. That's what I call it. But,
no, I understand. I understand. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I mean, they are little. It is what it is. But yeah, that will be my priority. And then lastly, I'll just, fill this team with, complementary role players that can actually step up and do something huge for you in the postseason setting. And I believe that there are a couple players on the Sixers team last season that have to return next year. But I've said a lot
into that.
Yeah, I've said a lot so far, so I'll just let you give your thoughts, and whether you agree or disagree with anything I said, we can definitely address that.
Well, you didn't say this, and I'm going to say this for you, because the number one priority needs to be to lock up the kid. Lock up number 0. You have to lock him up. Give him the max. That's priority number 1. That's where I'm at. Now, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I just left that out. I said a lot there, and I probably forgot to. But yeah, I know. That's one of the biggest priorities as well, because this team, you're building this team around Embiid and Maxey and Nick Nurse as well, in my opinion.
Of course.
So,
yes.
Yeah, you can continue.
And Ricky Council the fourth.
Well, he's already on the team for next year, so.
He's on the team for the next 4 years.
Yeah, for the next 4 years. Okay,
yeah. So, guess what? So that's priority number 1. Lock up the kid. Get him the maxed hours because he deserves it at the age of 23. That's priority number 1. The way that I'm looking at it, and I know that Daryl's going to look at this differently too, is the way that the game is played now. It's with how teams succeed, according to the way that I watch the game, is by having good, young, athletic guys that are in their primes and not paying players all based on reputation or what they did in years past, and not paying Paul George the max dollars, because that money, if there's anything I learned from the Tobias Harrison, even the Al Horford contract, it's that those contracts should be utilized to fill out the rest of the roster.
Right.
And
I agree.
I think that it's important for the Sixers to also try to go out there for a backup center. I want Andre Drummond back. That is obviously the ideal dream situation, I think, for anybody I don't think that the Bulls are going to give him up easily because the Bulls are just robbing the Sixers because that's just what they're there to do. They think that they can win a championship with Lonzo Ball coming back healthy next year. DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and all these other guys that they have, good on paper. They just can't put it together, and they want to just rob the Sixers. And Kobe White, shout out to Kobe White, too, because he was balling this year, and he is a really, really good player that's up and coming. But I want a backup center as my number 2 priority. And number 3, I need to make sure that Kelly Oubre comes back because I think that that's priority number 3. And then priority number 4 to me is fill out the rest of the roster, get good young basketball players, as DJ Eastwood would say. Shout out to DJ from Run It Back Philly, Sixers sicko at his total best. It's great. But I want nice basketball players, the guys that are just ballers, guys that can rebound, guys that can just get to the hoop and just hit threes. Right. That's what I want. I know that it's not really descriptive, but I just feel like that this year, when you look at free agency, it's not a good class. And the Sixers are there at the wrong time. I wouldn't be mad if they get a year of rentals this year. I would not be mad about that. Would I be satisfied with it? No. But I'd be in the middle about it, and I'd say, okay, because maybe they do try to go after a star that's in their prime. That's different because I would take a star that's in their prime right now, and I think that maybe that could help them. But I don't want to pay a guy like Paul George a lot of money.
Right. Too old, injury riddled. Yeah, right. He's out of his prime. I mean, most of the shots he's contested. He makes it difficult on himself. Yeah, we don't want Paul
in the playoffs, we all know. We all know what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So. But that's where I am.
And now, let me just say this real quick. I mean,
go for it.
In terms of free agency, I just think that Daryl Morey should be working with Nick Nurse, and in terms of the caliber of players that he should be bringing in, because you want players that fit Nick Nurse's style, Nick Nurse's system, Nick Nurse's tendencies and his philosophies. Because I always make this example: if you put Mike D'Antoni, who's an offensive-minded coach, if you put him as the head coach for the 2004 Pistons team, they probably don't win the championship because that team is a defensive-minded team, and then put in an offensive-minded coach as a coach, it's not going to be successful for them. So Daryl Morey should just work with Nick Nurse in terms of the caliber of players to bring in, athletic, two-way players that can, attack the basket, that can shoot, that can make a play, and that can also play defense as well.
I agree. I 1000% agree with that statement right there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the draft real quick. The NBA Combine was this week, right?
Right.
Draft night comes. Any splashes that you can see happening on draft night? Or did the Sixers actually draft somebody?
I think even if the Sixers draft somebody, they might trade that player for another player. Because the Sixers is not, they're not, and how do I even put this? They're not ready to develop a player. They don't have time to develop a player. I mean, you have Embiid who's in his prime, you have Maxey who's up and coming, and the main priority is to win a championship, not to develop players, not to rebuild, not to do anything. Now, I'm not saying you can't get a very good player out of the draft, but I mean, looking at this year's draft class, I mean, me personally, I don't really pay attention to it, but the hype has not really been there, and the caliber of players in this draft, I mean, I don't see anybody, or I haven't heard anybody or seen anybody in terms of their highlights, their games that can really. There's no player in this year's draft that you can put on a championship caliber team and expect him to do something, something productive. I don't see that. So even if the Sixers skip the 16th draft, the 16th pick, whoever they draft, they probably trade him on draft night, or maybe some more days to come because we've seen draft picks get traded right after they get drafted, like Andrew Wiggins. He get drafted by the Cavs, later on traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yep. And guess where the Timberwolves are right now? It's funny. It's funny because even Andrew Wiggins, like, obviously went to a finals and won a finals with the Warriors, but
right.
They had Jimmy Butler and they had Andrew Wiggins, and now Cat has a chance. So it's funny how it kind of comes all full circle.
Right.
Yeah. Who's staying and who's going is my final question I want to ask before we wrap things up. Who are you bringing back and who is bye-bye? So I guess that we'll do a little list here. All right. Okay. Number 1, Tobias Harris.
We appreciate him being here for the last 5.5 years. We appreciate his services. He came in. And let's not, let me be fair. I mean, against the Washington Wizards 3 years ago, he balled out 25 points, 10 rebounds. Yeah, he did his thing. But I believe you're only as good as your last game, right? And what was the stat line in his last game?
0 points.
Okay, so that right there, you're off.
1 for 2. He was 0 for 2 from the field.
So yeah, that right there. Appreciate your services. Appreciate you for being here for 5.5 seasons. I just want to go in a different direction. So bye-bye, Tobias.
Bye-bye, Tobias. Yeah. I'm actually bringing him back on a 1-day contract because I want one more crumble cookie. That's what I want. So give him a 1-day contract. Get Terry Harris back here, and have Tobias, Daryl, and Terry and Tobias's dad all take one last picture, for the last dance for just a day,
right?
And let him go. And you can bring back Boban too. Boban has to be in that picture as well. So I would sign them all to a 1-day contract if Josh Harris wants to spend money. But I don't know if that's wise money. But yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so Tobias is gone. Let's talk about Kyle Lowry.
So me personally, if it was up to me, I would bring him back because he's going to sign for the veteran minimums anyway. You're not signing him to a mid-level exception, or you're not giving him a max contract. So me personally, if it's up to me, yeah, he should definitely stay. And you can bring him off the bench and not give him 30 plus minutes because he's getting up there in age.
Lowry is not a priority for me, but if he comes back on the veteran minimum, I'm good with it. Right. I'm totally fine with it. Have him come back as a different role. That's good with me. If he's going to get more money somewhere else, though, bye-bye.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to pay him $10 million, I'm not doing it.
Have at it.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. So
yeah.
Let's talk about Nico Batum.
Stay. Absolutely stay.
I agree.
Absolutely stay.
I agree with that. I want Nico to stay because I think he is the perfect fit with Joel. I really do. And I also, as weird as this sounds, his tips on the rebounds, like, he has mastered that.
Right.
Like, he is so good at just tipping the ball out to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the Sixers have had a really good tipper. It sounds so weird to say.
Yeah, and
it does, also, but like that really is a skill.
Yeah, it is a skill. And also, when Embiid was healthy, they usually play that high and low actions with him. And Nico's a good passer. He knows how to give or how to deliver the best entry passes. And Embiid was just, giving the ball to Embiid in his right spots, and Embiid was just going to work. So yeah, definitely bring him back.
D'Anthony Melton,
bring him back. And the reason why I'm saying this is because he did have that back issue. Yeah, I see it, but I mean, D'Anthony Melton was one of our best defensive guards when he was playing, and I know the back issue really hindered his effectiveness. I mean, he didn't even play in the postseason, but I just think he would definitely be healthy for next year. So we should definitely bring him back.
I disagree. I actually disagree with you. I think that D'Anthony has had injury problems for the last couple of years. I'm tired of dealing with injuries. I know that injuries are a nature of the game, but when you have a back problem, I've been hearing from so many different athletes, like when you have a back problem, that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. And I already have one guy that is injury prone, and he's a superstar for my team. I don't need other guys to be injury prone. So I'm saying thank you for your service, D'Anthony. I know that you were a really good 3-point shooter, but I don't know if you can keep that up for a season next year, and I'm not willing to take that risk. So that's why I'm out on him, because I think he's a great talent. I do, but that's the same reason why I'm out on Robert Covington too. And I was going to get to your thoughts about Robert Covington.
Yeah, but yeah, that is fair. I respect your opinion, but Robert Covington, go hasn't played at all this year. The knee issue. I mean, he's getting up there in age as well, and having knee problems. I mean, he's a defensive player. He can shoot the three ball as well, and if you have knee issues, it prevents you from being quick on your feet, moving laterally, trying to keep guys in front of you. Having knee issues, is definitely going to affect your game defensively. So yeah, bye, Cov.
I feel bad because he was. I wanted him. I really wanted him to do more with that 3-point record. I really, really did. I wanted him. I wanted him. I think he still is number 2 right now on the Sixers all-time 3-point list. But I wanted him to break that, bro. I really did. Selfishly, I wanted him to break that. But it pains me to say it. It really does, but I'm out on him too. Right. And I thought that he was a positive impact when he was playing. I really did.
He was.
And they could have used him. They could have used him in that Knicks series. 1,000% if he was healthy.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm out on him. Buddy Hield.
Stay.
Really?
And, yeah. Because I mean, you do need 3-point shooters. Now, yeah, he didn't really have a good postseason outing. He had a good closeout. I mean, elimination. He did step up 20 plus points or something like that. But I mean, I do believe you need floor spacers. You need shooters. I mean, it's a shooters league, a scorer's paradise. So you need guys that can shoot the ball. And let's not get it twisted. Buddy Hield is one of the best volume shooters in the game. Now, his postseason numbers didn't show it, but I think having a full season with Embiid next year, he's absolutely going to be much better than what he was this season. So I would say definitely stay.
I would say stay if the price is right again. Like, I'm not overpaying Buddy Hield because I know that teams are going to do that. They're going to throw the money at him, and I'm not willing to do it.
Right.
So I sound like I'm cheap. I probably am. Maybe that's just who I am.
We all are.
But I don't want to bring back Buddy just because of that. I know that it is a 3-point shooter's game, and like in baseball, you have to have arms. You have to have really good volume 3-point shooters in the NBA. But if the Sixers can get that somewhere else, with a guy that can do more than just be a good 3-point shooter, then I think that I'm okay with taking that chance. But Buddy is not a big priority for me. I wouldn't be sad if he left, especially if he got paid a lot more money. So I'm out on him, but I'd like him to come back, if that makes sense, for the right price. So who else am I missing? Paul Reed.
We already touched on Paul.
Okay.
I did, and you did as well. Me personally, I would say he's a go, but I don't want the Sixers to cut him, because if you cut him, you're not. It's like him walking for free. He can just sign with another team as a free agent. But if you can, trade him use him, sign and. Now he's already on the. Sign and trade, right? But if you can sign and trade him and get a decent or another backup big man, in your case, you said Andre Drummond, that would be very, very helpful for the Sixers, because those Embiid-less minutes really killed the Sixers in the playoffs, and we don't want to see another year of that, because it's going to be the same thing, same result, different season. So Paul Reed is a go.
Paul Reed is a go for me too. Mo Bamba.
He's a go as well.
Kai Jones.
No, he's on the Clippers.
Kai Jones is now on the Clippers.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they could actually sign players now. Huh. That's weird.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Campaign.
For a reasonable price, yeah. Bring him back. Stay.
I actually want Campaign. I would be willing to pay him. I'd be willing to pay him like a nice contract for a role player because I think that he's a nice ball handler. I know that people say that he shoots backwards and he looks like a cartoon artist and he's like a Lou Williams type of a guy, but he's an energy sparker. And I feel maybe I'm being a little bit selfish here, but I like those types of guys. I like those hype men, you know?
Yeah.
And once he gets going, bro, you know, that changes intensity for a game. Now, can you get that somewhere else? You probably could. But I would like him to come back. I really would. So I'd say that he should stay.
Right.
I'll put it to you this way. I would take him over Kyle Lowry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take him over DeAnthony Melton. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair.
Okay.
But I mean,
Right.
DeAnthony Melton's one of my favorite players, so I'm not taking him over DeAnthony Melton. So yeah,
that makes sense. I understand. I get it. I know what he does defensively, but I can't trust that health, bro. Like if he was healthy, I'd say sure. But man, like that health to me is just like the biggest question mark with DeAnthony Melton.
right.
And then last but not least, I think it's last but not least, Kelly Oubre.
Stay.
Yeah.
Stay. And the reason why I said stay is because I mean we all saw what he did with the Sixers. On a veterans minimum, you know, sometimes stepping up as a third option, and we all saw what he did. He could definitely improve on his 3-point percentage. He shot below league average this year, but around the basket, he was pretty efficient. If you look at his percentages around the rim, if you look at his percentages from about 3 to 10 feet, it was pretty decent. So I would say bring him back. And he was good defensively as well. So definitely bring him back. But it's going to depend on what he actually wants. If he really wants to win, he'll probably sign with the Sixers. But if he's chasing the bag, you know, another team could definitely offer him more money than the Sixers. So me personally, I would say stay.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, I know that this wasn't in the flashcards, but I did want to sort of pick your brain on this because, again, we know how Daryl Morey works. He wants the big fish. He wants the stars. So I want to sort of like the stay go type of a thing. Mm-hmm. I do want to ask you, okay, sort of the same thing when it comes to these top tier free agents. If you would be okay or not okay with this, like if I guess that the way to put it is come or no, or
okay.
or really like yes or no. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Yes or no. Okay. I think that I spoke English right there for the first time, so that was beautiful. Okay. that was great. I wasn't speaking gibberish. So good stuff. Good stuff by me. We talked about Paul George. He's a no. Paul George to come to Philly is a no.
No.
How about Jimmy Butler?
I would say a no.
Okay.
I would say a no because Jimmy doesn't really with the same thing. I mean, I'm not saying he's DeAnthony Melton because he's not, but the same injury scares that you have on DeAnthony Melton, that's the same thing I have with Jimmy Butler. Because I mean, keep in mind he injured his MCL, right? And the last few seasons he's been dealing with injuries. He was hurt in the finals, and that's why I believe the Miami Heat were not able to. There's one of the reasons why the Miami Heat were not able to win. But me personally, I don't want him here because I think his best seasons are behind him. I don't think we're going to see, even if the Sixers sign him, we're going to see what he did with the Miami Heat again. So I would say no.
And I'm saying no because Pat Riley is not going to take a fleece. Right. And I feel like you're going to have to give up a lot to get Jimmy Butler.
Right.
And I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Plus, you have to pay him as well.
Exactly.
So I'm not doing it. So that is my thought about it right now.
Okay.
LeBron James.
No. And the reason why I'm saying no is because if you bring in LeBron, Maxey will have to take a back seat. Right. And LeBron has the ball in his hands almost all the time. So Maxey will be relegated back into the corner or back into that when James Harden was here, his role. Maxey will be into that role again. And, you don't want to deal with LeBron and, his system. You have to trade all the players, the media, everything. I don't know. His son probably might come to the Sixers. Who knows? But LeBron is over with. He doesn't really impact winning anymore. I mean, look at the postseason. Yeah, he did get his numbers, but the impact to winning was not there. So no.
Okay, but then my question to you is LeBron a better third option than Tobias Harris?
This not even a question, but yeah. But the thing is, LeBron is not going to be a third option. Trust me, he's not coming here to be
I understand, but even if it's Tyrese Maxey a better third option than Tobias Harris?
Right, absolutely, yeah. Tyrese Maxey as a third option, he was better than
Okay. Because I think that the Sixers on paper would be better with LeBron for sure.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is that if LeBron can take them to the promised land, I think that it would be special. But I selfishly want to see Tyrese Maxey grow into the role that he's blossoming into.
Right.
But I also would sacrifice a year of Tyrese Maxey taking more of a backseat and getting a championship to Philadelphia.
But here's another question.
Does that sound like weird to you?
I mean, it's not weird, but here's the question. Do you think if you sign LeBron, you're guaranteed a championship?
I don't think that they are.
Okay.
I don't think that they are.
LeBron only has
their chances get better. Their chances are better.
Yeah, the chances are better, but it's not a guarantee. And LeBron only has a year or two left, in my opinion. Okay. I don't think he's playing 3 years. I don't think he's going to exceed 2 years. So if you think you can get a championship from LeBron within a year or two, then yeah, you can sign him and, use Tyrese Maxey as a 1 season or 2 seasons as a third option, as you're talking about. But I don't think LeBron guarantees you a championship. So that's why I'm saying no to it.
But I also feel like at the same time, let's just say, God forbid, Joel gets hurt. Now we have another star that can fill in and that can step up.
Right, but you okay. I see what you mean, but you need another.
Of course. Yes. Okay. No, I understand. But I also have to kind of look at it from that perspective too, because now I also understand that maybe even some of the top free agents don't want to come to Philly because of the big guy always being hurt. But then glass half full, glass half empty, they love the kid.
Right.
And they think that he's a cool and up-and-coming star. It's just a tough situation, bro. It really is.
Yeah, I want to say this, though. But if you're a free agent and you're looking at teams that could potentially win, like let's say I'm a power forward and I'm looking at teams. Let's say I'm a free agent power forward and I'm looking at teams. I'm not going to look at Embiid as an injury-prone player. I'm going to look at it as if I'm on this team, he's not going to have to do a lot of things that he had to do in the previous years. That's why he got injured. If I'm on the team, he's not going to have to do that. If I'm on the team, he's not going to have to dominate the ball as he has, or he's not going to have to, get all the rebounds and fight guys underneath the basket. I can definitely take a lot of the load off of him and make his job even more easier, which will prevent him from getting hurt most of the time. Because, I mean, some of his injuries are, taking a lot of load, playing a lot of minutes, 35. How many minutes did he average? I mean, if you get another free agent who's thinking this way, yeah, Embiid's the load on Embiid would definitely lessen for sure. But I mean, everybody's thinking differently. So
I know that we are pressed for time, but my last question to ask you is, because you said no to a lot of these guys, which star would you take?
Star?
Yes.
Bro, there's no star that I would want to take, because if you
not even Mikal Bridges.
Is he a star? I don't consider him a star.
I consider him a star. But okay.
Wait, what's your criteria for stars?
A star to me is
Mhm.
somebody that is a leader for the team. And Mikal Bridges, I thought, was the leader for the Brooklyn Nets
Oh, so if you're a leader of the team, then you're a star.
most of the time, unless you're on the Charlotte
Is
Hornets.
I
Even
was about to,
LaMelo
I was
Ball,
about to
though,
pin you.
is a
I was about
star.
to pin you to the corner, but I mean, one player that I would want is OG Anunoby, and I
For a
don't
max
consider.
deal?
No, not a max deal, not a max. That's why I say I don't want no star players, but a free agent that I would want on this team is an OG Anunoby, who
Okay.
he's a wing player. He could play the power forward position. OG Anunoby was playing bully ball against Tobias Harris, and Tobias can really do anything with him. And
Yeah,
he plays
that's true.
defense at a very, very high level. He's a guy who could guard a Giannis, guard a Tatum, guard a Jalen Brown, and guard some of these elite wing players. So, and his 3-point percentage is not all the way there, but I think having him on this team will definitely be a huge, because your defense goes up because he's on the team. Perimeter defense, interior defense goes up as well because he was playing small ball center for the Knicks in the playoff series as well, and he was doing a pretty good job in Game 4 where he and Precious Achiuwa, they completely limited Embiid and made it difficult for him. So that's a free agent that I would want on this team.
Sure.
The only concerns that I have is one, his 3-point percentage, and two, he's been getting injured these last few years. Those are my only concerns. But a caliber player like that, not just OG Anunoby, but somebody who does what he does is something that I would definitely want on the Sixer team.
And this is how I'm gonna wrap it up. This is just a dream scenario for me. If I'm building a team, I want to get a couple of guys back from the process era. Give me and this is totally irrational. I understand that. And then we're gonna wrap things up. But get me Drew Holiday, TJ McConnell, Robert Covington, and literally Jimmy Butler and some of these other really, really good guys. I would actually take Christian. I would take Christian Wood back as well. Get me Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and let's just try this thing again with Tyrese Maxey. Let's just get like all those nice pieces from like all those years, and let's go win a championship. That's how I feel. I want like a process, last dance type of a thing. That's what I want.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean,
feds, bro.
having Drew Holiday would be very, very huge for the Sixers
Yeah.
because I mean, having him as a point of attack defender, somebody who could handle the ball.
Yeah.
He can shoot the ball as well. He's not a little guy, so he could take these defensive assignments. But he's locked in with the Celtics. They signed him to a max contract, so
I know.
yeah, it's not gonna be possible. TJ McConnell,
I can't just dream. I can't
yeah,
dream.
you can, but sometimes you just got to be realistic. Sometimes, and somebody
man.
said TJ McConnell, and I don't think
Yeah.
the Pacers are gonna let him up. Somebody said
No.
Lauri Markkanen. Me personally, I don't want to do business with Danny Ainge. He's the dirtiest player in the game. I don't want to do no business with him. So, and he's not. Trust me, he's not going to give you Lauri Markkanen for a 6-piece and a bucket of extra crispy. So, you're gonna have to give up something. You gonna definitely have to give up something. Picks or whatever. You're gonna have to give up something.
DFJ, I appreciate you so much for being on here. If you want to say your plugins and all that sort of stuff, feel free to do that.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you for having me on your show. Hopefully,
we did an hour 40 minutes, bro. An hour 40.
It didn't even
That's
feel
pretty
like
good.
it. It didn't even feel like it, but yeah, I appreciate you for having me on. Hopefully, this will be the first of many. I'll have you on my platform as well, but my platform is DFJ Hoops. I would actually put that in the comment section. DFJ Hoops. We talk Sixers basketball. I cover other teams as well. I'm covering the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks series. If y'all interested in it, you can you can tap in with me and we'll have fun talking basketball.
Yeah.
But
just be sure to bust his chops too, because he is he is a funny guy. He really is. He cracks me up. But it's all for fun. All right, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. This is another edition of Play by Play with JJ talking Sixers. And I will catch you all on the next one. Have a good night.